is that this House has considered security in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Kate Osamor.
Thank you, Dr. Huck, for calling me to speak. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairship. And I also want to thank the Right Honourable Member for Islington North for securing this important debate. Today I stand to discuss a crisis that has persisted for decades, a crisis that has devastated lives, many of which are my constituents, destroyed communities and destabilised an entire region. I'm speaking, of course, about the conflict in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC. A nation of immense potential, endowed with vast natural resources. The DRC is blessed with abundant natural resources, including gold, diamonds, tin, tantalum and cobalt resources that are essential to the global economy. Instead of being a blessing, these resources have fueled conflict. Armed groups, both domestic and foreign, have fought to control these resources, using the profits from illegal mining and trade to finance their operations and to perpetuate violence. The DRC has been described as a paradox, a country so rich in resources yet so poor in terms of development and human security. For over 2 decades, the people of the DRC have faced unspeakable horrors, from the wars of the late 1990s and the early 2000s, which drew in multiple neighbouring countries and claimed millions of lives, to the ongoing conflicts that continue to plague the eastern regions of North Kivu, South Kivu and Ituri. The Congolese state has often been unable or unwilling to protect its citizens, maintain security or provide basic services, leaving communities vulnerable to violence, denying its people peace, stability and prosperity. We must confront the humanitarian consequences of this conflict. The human cost is staggering. Over 6 million people have died because of the conflict-related causes since the late 1990s. Millions more have been displaced from their homes, with over 7.3 million people currently internally displaced. The violence has led to one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world today. The conflict has also been marked by horrific human rights abuses. Women and children have borne the brunt of this violence, with systematic sexual violence used as a weapon of war. Entire communities have been traumatised, and the psychological scars will take generations to heal. The violence has disrupted access to education, healthcare and basic services, deepening poverty and perpetuating cycles of suffering. The international community must play a pivotal role in addressing the conflict in the DRC. MONUSCO has been present in the country for over 2 decades, working to protect civilians and support peace efforts. However, the challenges are immense and peace remains elusive. We must rethink our approach to peace building in the DRC, because any solution to the conflict in the DRC must be inclusive and address the root causes of violence. This means bringing all stakeholders to the table: national and local leaders, civil society, women's groups, youth and marginalised communities. Peace cannot be achieved through top-down agreements alone. It must be built from the ground up. As I draw my remarks to a close, I would like to ask the Minister, when winding up, to address the following 4 points. What is the UK government doing to address economic drivers of conflict and the illegal exploitation of natural resources in regards to attributing as a major driver of the conflict? How is the UK government strengthening state institutions and governance? Peace in the DRC requires a strong and accountable government that can provide security, deliver services and uphold the rule of law. What talks has the UK government undertaken to enhance regional cooperation and stability? The conflict in the DRC is deeply intertwined with regional dynamics. Lastly, what is the UK government doing to protect human rights and ensuring accountability? Impunity is a major obstacle to peace. We must support efforts to hold perpetrators of violence accountable, whether they are members of armed groups, government forces or foreign actors. In conclusion, the conflict in the DRC is one of the most challenging crises of our time, but it's not a hopeless one. The Congolese people have shown remarkable resilience in the face of adversity. Their desire for peace, stability, and a chance to build a better future for themselves and their children. It is our collective responsibility, whether that is Congolese leaders, regional partners, and the international community, to stand with them in their quest for peace. Let us be bold, united in our purpose, and unwavering in our commitment to ending the conflict in the DRC. Together, we can help the DRC move from a cycle of violence to a cycle of peace, development, and prosperity. Thank you.
Of course, I'm very grateful to the Right Honourable Member for Islington North for securing what has been a very important debate, I think a very rich debate actually, and I want to thank everybody who's taken part in it. This is, of course, a debate that has global significance, as many have commented on, but it also is a debate which has very direct significance for those living in our country whose family and friends have been impacted by the very concerning situation that has been detailed. And I know that's particularly the case for my friend for Edmonton, and also indeed for the Right Honourable Member for Islington North as well. And of course, the security situation in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo is dire, and it is deserving of our attention. And I think my Right Honourable, the Right Honourable Member for Islington North was absolutely right to point out the fact that it has received insufficient global attention. It's very rare that one sees coverage of this issue, unfortunately, in the UK media. And when we look at the figures, it is surprising, frankly, that we find that. Of course, many speakers have detailed those. If we look in summary, we can see that over 7 million people have been displaced, and over 23 million people are in need. And ultimately, DRC is facing one of the world's most severe humanitarian crises. The new government is determined to ensure that the UK will play its part here, and I'm going to talk about how we're determined to do that in the remainder of my remarks. And of course, that is against the basis of previous government activity. I do want to acknowledge that. Obviously, the Shadow Minister rightly referred to this, and overall, we see the UK contributing a £114 million humanitarian programme for Eastern DRC that is delivering life-saving emergency assistance right now to people in need. And it's critical also in the context of our commitment to building lasting partnerships with African countries that we continue with that engagement with the issues that we've been talking about in this debate. And there were some specific decisions, specific questions asked about our ODA contribution and the continuation of that, also around the role of BII, and that has been significant, and some really exciting developments actually that show some of that potential that was referred to. Of course, I'm sure members will understand that those decisions are kept under review. I very much heard members' representations on this, but of course we do have a spending review coming up, as I'm sure members will understand. On the specific issues that were raised, first of all, around conflict prevention, I can underline that is very much one of our top priorities as a new government. That includes, of course, fostering peace and supporting mediation efforts in DRC and the wider Great Lakes region. And I was grateful to hear about the visits that have been undertaken by the Shadow Minister when she was in her previous role to DRC. She's clearly passionate about these issues. The new government has been determined to engage as much as possible. And I was grateful to the Liberal Democrat spokesperson for acknowledging the fact that Lord Collins has been in DRC. He's also been to Angola, and he is currently in Rwanda as well. So I hope that demonstrates the significance of commitment. While in Luanda, Lord Collins met with President João Lourenço to discuss Angola's pivotal role in mediating peace in DRC. He did congratulate the President on his recent successful efforts to negotiate a ceasefire. Those have been referred to by other members. But across the region, Lord Collins has encouraged all parties to not only fulfil their obligations under that ceasefire agreement, but to respect it in spirit, not just in letter, and to continue to seek to find ways to build on this progress to bring lasting peace. And he's conveyed that message right across those countries that he has been present in. There is that regional engagement that also is asked about, of course, by my honourable friend from Edmonton. And the honourable member for Strangford, I thank him for his kind words. He talked about the need for broader regional engagement as well. Of course, he is right about a whole range of countries. He mentioned South Africa. There are other nations, of course, in Africa deeply concerned about this situation, the instability that is then having that regional impact more broadly. But of course, the African Union as well. And I know that Lord Collins is keen to make sure that we are using those relationships to, as I said, try and bring the lasting peace that is the right of the people of the DRC. However, I would say that while recent steps have been encouraging, we cannot lose sight of the conflict's history. It has, as has been mentioned, persisted for almost 30 years, but the escalations of violence that we've seen over the last 2 years have been particularly concerning. The UK government strongly condemns the actions of all armed groups, including the UN-sanctioned M23 and the FDLR, and I reiterate the UK's support for the regionally led Nairobi peace process and the Luanda peace process as well. Peacekeeping was also, of course, referred to. It is a crucial part of international efforts to promote peace in eastern DRC, and MONUSCO does play a vital role in protecting civilians. So that members are aware, the UK has deployed 3 military staff officers to support MONUSCO's planning and performance and contributed £48 million to its budget in the last financial year under the previous government. However, MONUSCO is operating currently in very challenging circumstances. The Shadow Minister referred to attacks on peacekeepers and UN property. She described them as despicable. We would certainly share that assessment. They're unacceptable. When it was asked about what actions are being taken, the UK is continuing to push for accountability, responsibility for those who have conducted these despicable acts. And we do recognise also the importance of regionally led peacekeeping initiatives. As such, last month the UK supported the adoption, as was mentioned, of a UN Security Council resolution that mandated limited targeted support from MONUSCO to the Southern African Development Community's mission in DRC. We will continue to work closely with MONUSCO and UN Security Council member states to alleviate the conflict and its appalling humanitarian consequences. And when it comes specifically to the issue of withdrawal, we will continue to work closely with the DRC government on this towards a condition-based withdrawal that ensures a smooth transition and, above all, the protection of civilians. But I want to be absolutely clear that ultimately it's a political response, of course, not a military one, that's going to deliver that peace that is so desperately needed. And as I said, Lord Collins has been urging all sides to engage, particularly with the Luanda process, and deliver on their commitments made already during that process. The impacts of the conflict on civilians are widespread and they are devastating. The Shadow Minister talked about the impact on humanitarian workers. It indeed has been dreadful, including some particularly concerning recent instances as well, and our solidarity goes to and sympathy goes to the family of those affected. And of course in the East, conditions there increase the risk of sexual violence, malnutrition and disease. And DRC has been hit by multiple life-threatening outbreaks in recent years. Ebola, of course, was mentioned, but also cholera and measles as well. And now, of course, it's grappling, as has been mentioned, with deeply concerning outbreaks of Mpox across the country, particularly in the East, where, of course, the new strain emerged and where displaced people, particularly children and women and men, are living in appalling conditions. It's vital the international community works together in this context to control the spread of the virus and save lives. And that's why, while he was in DRC, Lord Collins announced more than £3 million in funding to UNICEF to tackle the ongoing Mpox and cholera outbreak as well. And I can also assure that the new government has met with Dr. Tedros. I have myself personally as Minister for Development, as has the Foreign Secretary as well, and Lord Collins is going to be meeting him soon, including to talk about these issues. Now, the issue of those living in IDP camps was also mentioned. They've been subject to direct consequences of the conflict. The member for Honiton and Sidmouth referred rightly to the prevalence of sexual violence, which is very concerning for those in IDP camps. But of course, we've also seen the bombing of IDP camps, disturbingly, in May this year. I condemn that in the strongest terms. The UK has repeatedly raised the inviolability of camps in multilateral fora and has consistently called for all parties to respect international humanitarian law, including by positioning heavy artillery away from camps. I wish to pay tribute to the invaluable efforts, again, of humanitarian workers in this context, but I also want to briefly touch on their important role in delivering the food security that's so desperately needed, that was rightly referred to by the member for Strangford in his powerful and compassionate speech. I want to inform members that the UK is signing a new agreement with the World Food Programme, committing a further £7 million to tackle food insecurity in DRC, because we're aware of that need. Now, the subject of women and girls was rightly referred to many times. DRC is a priority country here because women and girls there face some of the highest rates of sexual violence in the world. The Right Honourable Member for Islington North stated he met with some of the survivors. That vivid picture he painted was one that others referred to, one that I will remember. As an important Global South partner on this agenda, the UK and DRC have collaborated on action to tackle conflict-related sexual violence. That's included as members of the International Alliance on PSVI and partners under the Platform for Action promoting the rights and well-being of children born of conflict-related sexual violence, particularly difficult for those children who've been born, for example, out of conflict-related rape. And also, we're determined to boost the resilience of civil society partners, raised by many others as well. That includes ensuring that we're providing support to NGOs who are supporting survivors of sexual violence, and particularly the Trial International organisation, which we are supporting. Oh, right, okay. I will write to members about the other issues that they have raised. I'm very sorry if we ran out of time. Sorry, I think the vote in the middle has disturbed this. But I will write to members about the other issues that they have mentioned. I'm grateful to everyone for their participation in this debate. Thank you.
Order. Sitting adjourned until tomorrow. Yes.